Imagine waking up one day and realizing that your entire life, every decision, every victory, every mistake, was guided by a single desire: control. Not love, not recognition, not security, just the power to manipulate the world around you. That was the universe of Jordan Belfort, the man who conquered Wall Street with the same smile he used to drag souls into the abyss. A born salesman, a genius of persuasion, and above all, a manipulator with a mind sharp as a razor. Jordan began his journey like many, ambitious, young, and hungry. But what set him apart was how much he was willing to sacrifice. Starting out as an intern at a brokerage firm, he witnessed firsthand how money moved, not as a tool for progress, but as a weapon. In that environment, surrounded by promises and illusions, his personality began to morph into something darker. It was no longer about growth. It was about domination. When he founded Stratton Oakmont, his own brokerage firm, Jordan didn't just create a company. He built an empire of emotional manipulation. His brokers didn't sell stocks. They sold dreams. And those dreams were molded with sharp words, twisted numbers, and impossible promises. What began as a legitimate operation quickly descended into fraud, pump-and-dump schemes, and a toxic culture of excess. Drugs, sex, lust, and corruption became the currency inside Stratton's walls. But the most disturbing part wasn't what Jordan did. It was how he did it. He didn't see his clients as people. He saw them as targets, vulnerable to the right turn of phrase, the perfect tone of voice, the flawless script that triggered both fear and desire. He understood the human being in its rawest form, anxious, unsatisfied, desperate to feel like they're winning in life. And with that knowledge, he manipulated them like chess pieces. Jordan Belfort's secret was never just charisma. It was the ability to understand human weakness with near-clinical precision. He knew that people act on emotion and only rationalize afterward. He knew that the fear of loss is stronger than the desire for gain, and that in the face of fast riches, morality becomes flexible. His motivational speeches at Stratton Oakmont were like collective hypnosis sessions. He crafted a narrative in which brokers weren't just salesmen. They were warriors in an invisible war. Greed was rebranded as ambition. Lying was reframed as strategic persuasion. And so, hundreds of inexperienced young men turned into ruthless predators, ready to sell anything at any cost. But what few realize is that Jordan was also manipulating himself. He fed an identity built on power, status, and instant gratification. His compulsive drug use, especially Quaaludes, was a constant escape from an existential void that grew with each conquest. The more he won, the further he drifted from reality. He was no longer selling stocks. He was selling a distorted version of himself, a legend, a myth, a lie so well told that even he believed it. This internal manipulation is a common psychological trap among public figures who achieve extreme success in a short time. The ego inflates to such an extent that any criticism becomes an attack, any mistake becomes a conspiracy, and any limit becomes an obstacle to be crushed. Jordan didn't see rules. He saw challenges. He didn't see victims. He saw numbers. And so, his humanity began to dissolve under the weight of his own creation. With millions pouring into his account daily, Belfort seemed untouchable in the eyes of the market. His excesses reached cinematic proportions. He bought luxurious yachts, private jets, mansions, even a helicopter just for the pleasure of owning it. His days were marked by endless parties, sexual scandals, and a drug consumption that defied all logic. It was as if he was trying to fill a black hole inside himself with everything money could buy. Stratton Oakmont's culture became a microcosm of human degeneration. Employees were rewarded with prostitutes, bizarre incentives, humiliation contests, and war cries that echoed through the halls. Jordan had created a financial cult where he was the messiah of easy money. And like every cult leader, he too was a slave to his own doctrine. The media began to call him the Wolf of Wall Street, a title he wore with pride. But wolves in nature follow instincts. Jordan was different. He architected, manipulated, planned, and his most powerful weapon was the trust he inspired. He was the perfect predator because he disguised himself as a shepherd. But success doesn't silence everything. The FBI began sniffing out the trails left by the fraud. Discreet investigations surfaced, wiretaps were installed, and slowly, the house of cards began to collapse. Yet Jordan believed he was above the law. After all, he had manipulated everyone around him. Why not manipulate the system too? As the FBI tightened its grip, cracks in the empire began to show. Jordan's inner circle started to falter, with some close associates turning informants. His once loyal soldiers, those who chanted his name in offices filled with cocaine and euphoria, now whispered in fear, their voices trembling in wiretap conversations. The kingdom of manipulation was crumbling from the inside out. But Jordan didn't slow down. On the contrary, he accelerated, like a man sprinting toward a cliff. He believed speed could outrun consequences. He ignored warnings. He insulted regulators. He even tried to hide assets offshore and used coded language to communicate with his team. Delusion had taken the driver's seat, and rationality had been thrown out the window. Behind the scenes, the man was unraveling. His marriage was falling apart. His drug addiction escalated into overdose territory. There were incidents involving domestic abuse, public meltdowns, and paranoia so intense that he once attempted to bribe an FBI agent mid-conversation. The charismatic leader of Stratton Oakmont was becoming a tragic parody of himself. When the indictment finally came, it hit like a thunderclap. Multiple charges of fraud, money laundering, and stock manipulation. The empire that once printed millions by the hour had now become a mausoleum of deceit. Jordan's mugshot was a final punctuation mark on a story written in greed, excess, and delusion. But this was not the end. It was merely the descent. In prison, stripped of luxuries and status, Jordan faced the man he had become. The predator was now prey to his own thoughts. Without the distractions of wealth and fame, he encountered silence, and silence can be deafening to someone whose identity was built on noise. Psychologists define this phase as the ego death, a painful but potentially transformative stage where the illusions of the self shatter. Jordan was no longer the wolf. He was a man who had sold lies so convincingly that he forgot what truth felt like, and now he had to sit with it. Ironically, it was in prison where he began to write. His memoirs became a form of confession, though not always entirely honest. Writing allowed him to reclaim control, but this time, over the narrative of his past. He crafted a version of events where he was both villain and victim, a manipulator and a man manipulated by the system, his addictions, his greed. The public devoured it. The story of a man who flew too close to the sun, burned his wings, and lived to tell the tale. Hollywood turned it into a blockbuster. The wolf had returned, not to Wall Street, but to the world stage as a reformed icon, a motivational speaker, a guru of success. But some questioned, had he truly changed, or was this yet another brilliant performance? The manipulator had mastered one final trick, manipulating the idea of redemption. Jordan Belfort's legacy is a paradox. To some, he's a cautionary tale. To others, a symbol of rebellion against a rigged system. But beneath it all lies a haunting truth. When we glorify the manipulator, we risk becoming complicit in the manipulation. We start to admire not the brilliance of a man, but the ease with which he exploited our darkest desires. There's a reason people still flock to hear Jordan speak. He offers not just stories, but an illusion that you, too, could bend the world to your will if you learn to sell like he did. But selling without ethics is just seduction wrapped in charisma. It's the art of turning human vulnerability into profit. The story of Jordan Belfort is not about money. It's about the human condition, our hunger for status, our fear of irrelevance, and our willingness to blur the lines between ambition and corruption. It's about how easily charm becomes a weapon, how quickly confidence becomes a cult, and how far we'll go to silence the voice that tells us, deep down, that we're not in control. This is not just the fall of a man. It's the fall of a culture that worships success at any cost. Let this story remind us, not all wolves wear fur. Some wear suits, some smile, and some know exactly what to say to make you believe they're saving you, when they're really leading you to the slaughter. Thank you for watching this video. We ask you to subscribe to our channel and like this video. Also, activate the notification bell to be alerted about our next posts. See you in the next video.